Hi, welcome to ATC Life Builders Podcast. I'm James Oviedo. It is an honor and a privilege to have this guest here with us today. He's touched my heart in so many ways in the short few months that I've had the pleasure and opportunity to sit with him, and I could go on about that. But what I'm going to do is start by looking at his bio and reading it, and I know I'm going to embarrass him because he's such a humble man. So listen up and let's get ready to learn. John G. Gergulis was born April 10th, 1937 in Niantic, Connecticut. He graduated the Citadel Military Academy in Charleston, South Carolina in 1960 and commissioned second lieutenant in the infantry. His first assignment was Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where he was given basic training company command. From there, he was assigned to Korea in 1963, assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia, with the 187th Airborne Infantry Air Mobile Test Division, which then converted to the 112th Airborne Battalion, 1st Cavalry Airborne Division in July 1966, and then shipped to Vietnam as Delta Company commander. He had a second tour in Vietnam as an advisor to the South Vietnamese Army. He served as a U.S. liaison to the British Airborne, battalion commander in Berlin, Germany, and battalion commander in Mannheim, Germany. He also served at the Pentagon and 18th Airborne Corps and other units during his 30 years of service to this country. Operations Employment Course, Command General Staff College, Battalion Pre-Command Course, U.S. Army War College, Brigadier Commander Course, Air Medal, First 1 Oak Clusters with Valor, Expert Infantry Badge, Combat Infantry Badge, Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Cross of Gallantry with Palms. 4 Overseas Bars Bronze Star Medal, 1 Oak Leaf Cluster with Valor, Army Commendation Medal, 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, 1 Oak Leaf Cluster with Valor, Army Occupation Medal, Republic of Korea Presidential Unit Citation, Master Jump Wings, British Jump Wings, German Jump Wings, General Staff Identification Badge, Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, Defense Meritorious Medal, Legion of Merit Medal. This man, to me, is a hero. But today, you're going to see more than just paper. You're actually going to get to hear the heart of this wonderful man. John Gergulis, may I call you John, sir?
Thank you very, very much, my dear brother.
Thank you, and welcome to our show.
Glad to be here, and thank you very, very much for having me.
Before you start, we, on behalf of ATC and our family, just want to give you something and thank you for even taking the time and meeting with us today. So check it out. I hope you like it. We found out that you have some goodies.
I can see already that I'm going to like it and proudly display it. I'll put this over here.
That sounds good.
There you go.
So for our listeners that aren't like ourselves, been in the military, so there may be some things that we may have to explain. One of the things that I wanted to start out with is, before we even get into your illustrious career, gosh, there's so much. What made you go into military service?
This is the hilarious part of my life. I never wanted to go into the military.
What?
I was what you might refer to as a renegade growing up. I grew up in Groton, New London, Connecticut.
Okay.
Home of the U.S. submarine fleet. A little bit of background. My dad, who was affiliated with the services but couldn't participate as a soldier, he got shot by an irate hunter, right arm, and as hard as he tried to go in the service, he couldn't. Anyhow, Niantic is a little Indian town named after the Niantic Indians. In the winter months, 1,500 permanent residents. Summer months, it's a beach resort town, and all the, as I refer to them, the hoi polloi come down out of New York and Rhode Island and New Jersey and Massachusetts to their beach mansions. And the population grows to 30,000, 40,000 people. Anyhow, that's kind of the way I was brought up. Went to high school. And one day, I played football. One day, walking down the halls with some of my buddies, loudspeaker, John Gergulis report to Dean of Boys, Colonel Smalls. Guys with me said, yeah, He found out about you playing hooky and drinking beer, and you're going to be in trouble. I said, you're going to go with me. But anyhow, I reported to the little white-haired lady who was his longtime secretary, and I said, ma'am, what's Colonel Smalls want with me? Just, you know the protocol, knock on the door and go in, he's waiting for you. Well, Colonel Smalls was a big man, and he'd walk around school, and he didn't smile. He just nodded his head, and you knew that he knew what you'd been up to. Anyhow, I walked in, saluted, and he said, I understand you've been applying to such and such and such and such college. Yes, sir. He said, you need to apply to the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina. General Mark Clark had just been named president. Jimmy Burns, who had been governor of South Carolina, was, if I recall correctly, Marco Rubio's predecessor, Secretary of State. And he'd invited General Clark when he retired to come down to South Carolina and have a look at us with a view to replace longtime president at the Citadel. General Clark accepted. Year was 1954. Yes, sir. And you report to Mr. Anderson, your counselor. 54. Anyhow, I did and got through all that. I loved being regimented at the Citadel, and South Carolina is a wonderful place, and very significant historically. Enjoyed being at the Citadel, matriculated there, and reported to the commandant of cadets and asked him to please ensure that I'm assigned to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, because I have no intention of staying in the service. I don't want anything to do with the service. I shouldn't say this on camera, but anyhow, I will. They're paying me $222 a month, plus $47 in change for subsistence. And I lived in, I think, third or fourth floor barracks from World War One with three other lieutenants, one latrine. But because I happen to have a senior number, I got to use it first. Reported to Fort Jackson to the colonel, regimental commander. He looked at my file, a one-liner, the old Royal Uniroyal typewriter. He says, I see you're a graduate of the Institute for Wayward Boys. Yes, sir. He says, I need a company commander. Now, here's an individual who was on his last assignment at Fort Jackson, full colonel, who at 23, World War II, was a full colonel. I thought the guy was nuts. You paid me a company commander as a second lieutenant. He did, and I did. There's so much I can tell you about the Army then. Charles and Dusty and some of the other brothers that I'm still with or are still tolerant of me. If we were in the Army today, we'd last about 2 weeks, if that. But I fell in love with soldiers, and I thought I was a big deal. In fact, until a few weeks ago, after I met you, I thought I'd been in charge. I hadn't been in charge of anything. Okay? And entered the service. If I could reflect back, second lieutenant, I only had half a dozen non-commissioned officers, kids, and they were 16 and up, but very young, came into the service. Some, I'm not going to mention regional areas, didn't even know what indoor plumbing and running water was. And I was in charge of this group, and I was supposed to train them. I didn't do anything. I was present for duty. He had the first sergeant, thank God, and they hung a shingle. Lieutenant John Gergulis commanding below the first sergeant's shingle. Got through first command and met a young lady at the Citadel, and she was from Manning, South Carolina. What's Manning famous for? Pocatello Swamp and Miss America 1957, Marion McKnight. She took me to Manning to introduce me to her mama. I fell in love with her mama, and eventually, Colonel called me in, and in those days, you had to get permission from the Colonel and Mrs. Colonel to get married. I didn't have to do that. I got called aside one day at a social function by the Colonel, and he said, "Young man, you need to marry that young lady. She would be wonderful for you and keep you on the straight and narrow." We eventually got married. The Vietnam War had started. We had a lot of advisors, and talking to my new bride and all, I said, "Hey, I want you to know I'm gonna volunteer for Vietnam duty." I was now still a second lieutenant, still commanding a company at Fort Jackson. I got a very nice letter from infantry branch, and they said, "We don't need young lieutenants for Vietnam duty. We're looking for field grade officers with experience and older captains, blah, blah, blah. But if we got a deal for you, we're going to send you to Korea." I give you all this background only because it leads to the main subject. Soldiers. I volunteered for Korea. I was sent to Korea unaccompanied. My new bride went to her mother in Manning, who was a widow. Anyhow, successful tour in Korea, which only reinforced my deep respect and adoration for soldiers. Got orders to return to Fort Benning, Georgia, to the infantry board. Well, they don't send lieutenants to the infantry board. Yes, I was promotable, but the infantry board, bunch of old colonels, and anyhow. Kimpo no longer exists. Major airfield in Korea. We're waiting for the whole constellation of command to take us through Wake Island back to the States. Master Sergeant comes out. Group of us were standing around running our mouths. He said, your orders have been changed. He came to me and he said, your orders have been changed, sir. They called me sir. I'm a promotable first lieutenant. He said, you're still going to Fort Benning, but you're not going to the infantry board. Boy, they found out about me. So now what do we do? But anyhow, I end up at Fort Benning, Georgia, at a new test bed unit, vertical envelopment, helicopters in combat. What the hell is that all about? And they assigned us at Fort Benning, Harmony Church, which is out in the middle of nowhere. Here come these kids, 16 and older. Charles was 17 at the time and made the mistake of telling our master sergeant, who asked him, he said, "Can you type?" "Yes, sir." "You're hired." And that's what starts this glorious, I won't apologize, relationship with soldiers who came to us from all over the world. Well, we got through 1963. 1965, we're renamed 1st of the 12th, 1st Cavalry Division. Y'all going to Vietnam. Where the hell is Vietnam? In fact, I remember vividly Do we have some maps of Vietnam that we can show our soldiers where the hell they're going? No. We developed maps of Vietnam. The year now is 1965, and at 2 o'clock one cloudy morning, we're transported from Fort Benning, Georgia, by buses. I had to ask the driver of one of the buses, "Where the hell are we going?" He said, "I can't tell you that." "What do you mean you can't tell me that? You want my soldiers on board this damn bus, and you're going to take us someplace that I'm not to know? I'm the damn company commander. I was a captain at the time, and I won't tell you my background with the 11th Air Assault Division and all that. They didn't know what the hell to do with me." And finally, one morning, the executive officer, wonderful, wonderful colonel, came upstairs where I was hiding with Charles and a couple other troopers. And I was a captain now, a big deal. And he said, "Get your butt downstairs to the battalion commander. He wants to see you." "What's he want with me?" "Get downstairs and he'll tell you." Same old drill. Didn't even look up. "Get your butt down to D Company, take command and straighten out that mess down there." And the rest is history. 1965 summer, May, June time frame, we're loading up on the USNS Geiger. 30 some odd days to Vietnam. That's another story. We won't go there. 1965 and 66 was quite an experience in the lives of young soldiers who had come to us from all over the world. Didn't even know how to spell Vietnam, let alone know where the hell Vietnam was. Believe me, their company commander was not much better. We got through that. We got through the experiences of 65 and 66. We were stationed Highway 19, which split the country basically north and south. Yeah, that all sounded great. Ho Chi Minh, little white bearded senior citizen, communicated with his people. I still haven't figured that one out. It was great that we had the South and we had the North, the NVA, the bad guys. But the bad guys were uncles, cousins, brothers of Southerners. And we were in the middle, caught in the middle of all of this. James, I don't know what you want to do with all of this, but I can tell you that our soldiers and the perception, wrong as it is, that we lost the war. Wrong. These kids won. We had a sign that we took to Vietnam, stuck it in the ground. The impossible we do immediately. Miracles take us a little bit longer. These kids believed that, and I believed it. And they operated accordingly. I'm asked, and I'm proud to tell you, I never had more fun than I did in Vietnam as a company commander, because I didn't have to do anything. We had trained together for a couple of years, and these kids, Charles was 17 when he came to Fort Benning, so he was 18, 19 in Vietnam. But I can't identify one soldier. I didn't have to do anything. We were talking the other night, disciplinary action. Never gave an Article 15 to any soldier in Vietnam. There was no need for it.
How would you define your leadership? I mean, that you have this innate quality to just be who you are. What are your thoughts on that?
It's because of them.
Followership.
There's a lot of talk out there, okay? Let me kind of paint you a picture, if I may. You get appointed as a company commander, which is rare, okay? If you command one company as a lieutenant or captain, count your lucky stars, because ain't no more coming. Because of guys like Charles and Dusty and Michael and so many more, and they're all gone now, but when you're appointed a company commander, who the hell are you? Okay? So you go down and you got 100, as in my case, 145 soldiers that you're responsible for. You have to develop, I call it respect. Your soldiers have to accept you as a company commander. You can't go down there with all the bluster and on and on. I'm a big deal. I'm the company commander, and you'll do what the hell I tell you. No, it doesn't work that way. Soldiers are precious human beings, and your function is to take care of them and provide for them. They have to accept you. If they don't accept you, you're in deep kimchi.
What lessons would you give someone looking back now for that kind of being accepted in that kind of role? What would you tell them? What's the best way to be accepted and be respected and lead from the rear, as they say?
Yeah, well, it takes a few months. They're looking at you with the jaundiced eye. What's this guy going to do next? But it was wonderful, with few exceptions. And I want to make this comment because as you move up through the ranks, you lose sight of what your purpose is. Okay? Who's taking care of these soldiers? The soldier will always be a soldier, do his thing. Hopefully, he's going to get promoted along based on performance, but he's got to get along, as does the company commander or battalion commander, with all those other soldiers who come from all parts of our country and the world. First combat operation company, we had more machine guns, and a week before we deployed, here comes a three-piece suit civilian from Department of Defense. He says, I've got 4 106 recoilless rifles reporting to you in a couple of days. Hey, youngster, are you kidding me? The kid couldn't have been 19 years old. What the hell am I going to do with a 106 recoilless rifle in the jungles of rice paddies of Vietnam? Well, I had a smart Sergeant E6. He's long gone now. God bless him. Staff Sergeant Hoffmeister. And he said, we're going to use these 106s. Use the 106 as an indirect fire weapon. It's a direct fire bunker buster. Now, those are things that we went through and these kids experienced. They were first, our company, we were airborne. Whoever heard of airborne with the 1st Cavalry Division, which was an armored division at the time? That eventually went away. They were troopers. I know I was present but I didn't do anything. Yeah, they didn't have to wait for instructions to come out. Brother James, I want to tell you this because to me, it defines how we were able to succeed in Vietnam. I never received a written order. And in all our schooling, what do you think the emphasis is on? Written orders from higher headquarters telling you what the hell to do. I'd get a runner, trooper from battalion, as an example. We're talking Vietnam. Sir, you're to deploy to coordinates such and such and call back and let us know what the hell's going on. What's at these coordinates? Well, that's for you to find out and let us know. Well, now, wait a minute. We had such rulings, if you will, from higher headquarters. Laos and Cambodia across the creek.
Right.
Those enemies could fire on my soldier, but I could not return fire. Don't tell Department of Defense. These guys were wonderful. My radio operators, I had 3 of them that followed me around, and general officers in their helicopters flying ahead. Now, John, you may want to do such and such and such and such. Not a good idea, sir, but I'll tell you what, if you'd like to come down here, I'll get in your chopper and you do what you think I should be doing. It was pulling it out of our butt. The first casualty of our first combat operation. 3 companies online, 1 in reserve. I'm on the right flank. Terry Tim Wright. His mama operated a lounge up in Illinois or someplace like that. I found out too late. She had signed authorization for him to join the Army. He was 15 or 16. Shortly thereafter, the higher up directed that we purge our roles and identify any 16-year-olds or younger and get them out of frontline units. Wonderful, wonderful young man, good-looking soldier. He had a 5.5 or 6.5 inch boot. And I'm walking through the company area one day and I said, Jesus, my troopers are walking out of their rotting boots. And incidentally, yours are rotted too. Supply sergeant, we got to get boots. Yes, sir, we'll take care of it, but you have a challenge. What do you mean? We have a challenge? No, you have a challenge. He said, the Army doesn't make 5.5 or 6.5 inch boot. I said, well, your challenge is to get a pair. I don't care where the hell you get them, but get young Wright pair of boots. He needs them. Supply sergeant did. And I later found out in sending one of those god-awful letters to his mama that his father was a sergeant in Korea and had been KIA. I can tell you, they're not stories, these are facts. Charles and some of our other guys, the recon platoon, and they were so trained that I might look at you in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, Sergeant James, you're with recon today. Holy radio operators. If higher headquarters call asks, where are we? Give him these coordinates. Sir, we're not at those coordinates. Young man, what did I just tell you? Yes, sir. Anyhow, we'd all be in jail. You too, if we were in the Army today and tried to do what was right for our soldiers. Yeah, now.
Were some of these actions, what I recall from history, Military Assistance Command, the studies observation group that were classified for years, they've just been declassified. A lot of the stuff, great things that they did in your years. And it was the Delta Company any part of helping taxi some of these soldiers into operations that weren't even acknowledged and that we needed to get done?
You want to talk? You want?
Oh, I'm going to have him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have him on the show for sure.
The recon platoon.
Right.
They captured. They said, recon platoon. What are you talking about? How many? Well, it could be 20, could be a few more, could be a few less. One operation one night. Well, they captured the damn hospital that supported Hal Moore's, General Hal Moore, he's a lieutenant colonel in the Idrang Valley campaign, which was the
movie.
Yeah.
We were soldiers. Was that?
That's it. You bet. And Charles and
Dusty,
all of them. God bless them.
And that's why we wanted to have you first. And I think, my relationship with Chuck was advised me the same, to pull the story together, because there's so much history and knowledge and, quite frankly, wisdom that our soldiers today need. And not even that, just people, civilians. They don't know about some of these great actions. And like you're saying, some of these men that have put their life on the line, done incredible things.
If I can speak,
Certainly.
I'm in that gallery. Biggest thing about this commander is he trusted his NCOs.
Mm.
He let his NCOs lead the troops. That was his success.
Thank you, Chuck.
I want to.
By the way, we are going to have Chuck Rose on the show, and y'all be ready to listen to something like that.
Oh, he and Dusty and so many others, Mike Van Kirk, they're legends.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand. They say, oh, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? Let me tell you what the big deal is. I shouldn't do this, but please permit me. Two things that our country is suffering from and doesn't understand. We're suffering from information overload. Just watch your boob tube.
Mm.
What the hell? What? The American public doesn't understand what these media people are saying and sharing with us. But the other thing and most important thing that I experienced in the 1980s as a brigade commander, introduction of females to combat units. And that's a whole other story. And we talk about woke and whatever today. I don't know what that's all about, but I experienced that as a brigade commander. I gotta do this. I'm a full colonel. I got a couple of years in grade. I get selected, one of 16 colonels in all of the Army, and I'm told where I'm going to go. Brigade in Mannheim, Germany. Well, I had a battalion in Berlin. Oh, what a wonderful assignment. The Brits are wonderful. We had a great time. Our troopers had a great time. I'm told, after being selected, that They, in Mannheim, higher-ups, Corps and Division, and I'm not going to name them, okay? They don't want me. So I get a call from Washington, and I'm told. I said, BS. I got selected. I want to go to that command. John, they don't want you. I went to that command. End of that story, okay? But what an experience. I didn't know what woke was, and trying to care for females in the field. That's a challenge in itself. My experiences as a soldier, we could spend a year talking about Burley. I don't know, James. I commanded several different companies. I learned from my soldiers, thank God. We didn't have our full complement of non-commissioned officers. They served double duty, what few of them there was. Anyhow, what else? What else you want?
What you adapted so well, so I don't even know that this is a fair question, but what would you find was the hardest thing to adapt to in military life? Because it's obviously different than when we're in civilian life. What would you say was the biggest adjustment you had to make in your mind and going into this new type of society?
The Army has told me and documented that I don't fit into our society.
That's why it's such a great
Okay.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, when I left the Army, when I retired early, I was told you can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. Here's a statue. I'm out of here. I don't need this nonsense.
And what made you come to that? Why was it that you were done? Now you were changing to something else.
The Army told me after brigade command I was going back to the Army staff. It's a pig's knuckle. What the hell? What's the function of the higher ups? Well, they're trying to get promoted, and get into position. What about the soldier? Okay? You're not going to send me back to soldiers? Well, listen, your lady is here, but I stepped on my wazoo. But anyhow, you can't tell people how they don't want to hear it. Okay? So, no sour grape. Boy, I was blessed beyond my wildest dreams. And for someone who had no desire, no interest to go into the service, I plead guilty. For learning from my soldiers how to be a soldier in a command position. You say, you're out of your mind. How did you learn from your soldiers? Well, watching them operate, we train together, and the fruits of our efforts to come together in combat and beyond. Who ever heard of a commander, a soldier, who fought with his soldiers more than 65 years ago, and they are still together, what few of them are left? Why?
Did get to witness that at the MVets when you all did the get together. It was a beautiful experience.
Well, I know I've run my mouth. I apologize to you. I don't apologize to Charles. He's responsible for everything I say and do these days. He made me. He and Dusty. And when Charles came to us at 17 years of age, I was 26 years of age. And I thought when he showed up, Master Sergeant brought him in after I met him and all. Why'd you select him? He's young. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. And military background. His dad, God bless him, full colonel, military. After he left us, I don't know how it happened, but you need to know this. He was recommended for officer candidate course, and he's a successful graduate.
Yeah.
Chaplain shows up at Mrs. Rose's front stoop one morning. He said, "Mrs. Rose, I'm sorry to inform you that your son has been KIA in action." Same area, geographical area, when we were there in 63, or 65, I'm sorry. Mrs. Rose, and I have not met her, okay, long gone, says to the chaplain, "No, chaplain, my son is not dead," and went back in the house, shut the door. A week later, Department of the Army and DOD sends a sedan and an escort to take Mrs. Rose to Walter Reed. He's familiar with Walter Reed Medical Center. He spent a year there, or nearly a year. Yeah, recuperating from. He was a company commander. And I guess I failed to teach you not to step on IEDs and mines and, find yourself in an intolerable situation. He puts on a good act, but I'll tell you, he's hurt just like Dusty.
Yeah.
Thank hell. But, I don't know if you want to ask me anything else, but I'd like to close out and let you know I'm so proud of those kids. There's not a kid that we stood with and fought with in Vietnam that was part of the Delta team. Magnificent, magnificent. And I was privileged, honored to be part of that, But
Well, sir, you've left an imprint. When I first met Chuck, it was instant connection. That rarely happens.
James, Dusty and Charles, why?
They are quite humble. I mean, but when we got to talking, much from the late 70s, 80s generation, but the training that came out of Vietnam, the Delta units, the Ranger units, the things that we went through are credit to you and what was transferred into Chuck and what's still being transferred. Look, I have 3 masters and a PhD after getting out of the military. It means absolutely nothing because I'm constantly looking for wisdom and mentors, much like Chuck has had with you. When I saw Chuck, when we talked, I knew there's a person that I can connect with and speak on higher things. And in the time that I've met him and been with him, he's just been just a wealth of wisdom. Even the short moments that we speak on the phone or at the post, and it's that leadership that's just missing in every part of our country. And so you have been an influence on that. And because of you, through him, I wouldn't have a show like this to be able to talk about these deep things. Now I'm going to turn it on you, and I do have a question, actually 3. So let's say for all of us, it is our last day on earth today. And all the awards and all the beautiful situations that we've been through, maybe books we've written, maybe podcasts, we can't do anything with them. We got to take them with us. But the good Lord has allowed us to leave three things as a message to the world to make it better. What would you tell if it was our last day on earth? What would you advise those that live on to say, hey, these three things, these are important. It could be more if you want, but what is important on our journey on life to make ourselves better and to lead the world better?
Whoa. You should have warned me about that one. But in my case, I have to revert to soldiers again. That's all I knew for 30 years. And the influentials up above, took from me my very existence, okay? But I would say to you and to our country, the armed forces, and as much as I read the present administration and all, we're too damn politicized, okay? I remember years ago, I'm off the subject slightly, walking through the halls of Congress. I'm a student from the Army staff, and congressman, senator, walking up and down the halls of the Capitol. Next thing you know, they're on the floor, beating up on each other. That's the way they settled things years ago. Now what do you get? But anyway, James, I know personally that I'm the luckiest soldier in all of the Army and have been for years, that I was given an opportunity that I didn't squander. I didn't want to go in the Army, but I ended up in the Army and made the most of it, I think, while in the Army. Our country, our armed services offer an opportunity for Joe Schmolowitz from wherever to excel and learn skills that he or she can apply when she leaves the service. Where have you ever heard of an opportunity? You come into service at 17, 18. You put in 20 years, you earn a retirement and benefits. Yes, a commissary and base exchange and whatever. And how old are you? Under 40? And you can go on and be whatever you want in the most wonderful country in the world. And I look at the boob tube and these people, what the hell are you rioting about? And that's a whole other subject, has nothing to do with this. What are you complaining about? I've traveled the world, yes, with soldiers, and I've seen, never mind squalor, no freedom. Now, I know I'm off the subject, but it doesn't matter. We're in Berlin. I tell my soldiers, look, you only have a couple of requirements. When you go on pass or leave, you're going to take a buddy with you. Okay? Number two, when you're out there, you're wearing the uniform of the Army of the United States of America, and you're in that suit. act accordingly. Okay? These kids understood that. They weren't threatened. One of my troopers got in a little difficulty. I personally talked to the trooper. And I said, do not mess with the police eye. They shoot first and then ask you what the hell you're doing while you're sitting on there, laying on the ground bleeding. He sent me a note, which is unusual for German prison. He said, sir, you got to come down here and get me out of here. I said, what did I tell you? Son, I wish I could. I tried my damnedest, but in all of my service with soldiers, I cannot remember more than about 5 individuals who were bent on destroying themselves and their future. And we knew how to deal with those, but I'm not going to tell you. They're worth my come and get me. They said, you did that when you were in. Yeah, we did. But
I've heard 3 things here, and I'm going to attempt to be a translator for you. Beautiful. 3 things. 1, don't squander your opportunity. Learn and do the right thing. Represent. And I think those are fabulous words of wisdom and advice. I can take that and pass that on. I can take that to heart. Certainly in my ability to try to be a better person, it certainly is part of my principles. And so you're describing, and that's why we ask our visitors on our podcast, what can you share? And what you just shared is wonderful. Don't squander opportunity. Learn along the way and represent yourself well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your service to this country and what you've learned, as you said, from your soldiers to be the man that you are.
I thank you. I apologize for getting a bit emotional, but you had to have been there with these characters to really understand it all, and I don't think they understand. I know I don't sometimes, but anyhow, life is good in the hood.
Thank you so much, John, for your time. We're going to wrap it up right here. I mean, with your words of wisdom, I'm going to also make sure that our viewers and our listeners can look up at cattrack6india.com, Charlie Alpha Tango Tango Romeo Alpha, Charlie Kilo 6india.com. And you can find out some more information about this wonderful unit, Delta Company, 1st Battalion, 12th Cavalry, and Airborne. And next time you watch that movie, We Were Soldiers, for those that haven't seen it, you have a little bit more insight while we still have these legacies with us to learn from. And remember what he just said. Don't squander the opportunities that you have. Learn and do what's right and represent. As you could probably tell, we will be having in the future Colonel Chuck Rose, who's I consider, he doesn't consider that, but a lot of times they don't have us to, they get chosen. And I think those are the best men. Chuck Rose being your dear friend, I consider him that. And while we still have life, let's don't live by installments. Let's make sure that we pass on these legacies for others that need this so much in our country today and in the world. So thank you for listening to our podcast. And John,
Thank you very much, sir. Lest we ever forget.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you.
I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.